Hello. Wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about our discussion board that asked for any problems or points of confusion and so forth. So what I've done is actually copied and pasted everybody's responses into this document, and I thought I might go through a couple of the discussion board postings that I highlighted that were either made really good points or were examples of points of confusion that was common, and just things that we can talk about a little bit deeper. Again, I kind of randomly chose these to make sure that it was a representative sample of the some of the comments that were made. And so again, if I don't talk about your particular post, that isn't a negative. It's just I just randomly chose some of these. And the first one was Michelle's. We're talking about assumptions and a really good example of a bus trip, and how will changing my perceptions and my own attitudes impact the actions of other people or the circumstance. And it may not. It certainly may not impact other people, but it will impact your own assumptions and your own choices and what you believe about yourself, and it will certainly impact your own paradigm or how you see the circumstance. And that's the most important piece here, is there are things you can control. You can control you. You can't necessarily control other people. That's impossible. But you can control your own actions and how you view things and how you see the world, and how you are perceived by others. So basically, what we can control is us in our lives. And this is something that we ask our clients and patients to do every day. We ask them to make significant change that they believe may be based on the wishes or ideas of other people. And if that change is based on the wishes and ideas of other people, then that change usually does not work out. It's internal change that happens because you're really, really interested in that. It's the type of change that sticks. So last but not least with this comment, in terms of I truly believe listening and understanding is the most important thing we can do in conversations with other people and in our society. Covey says to seek to understand first, then be understood. And that's certainly something that I want all of us to remember as we go through this process. If we spend more energy on trying to understand each other instead of trying to get our point across, or our feelings across, our opinions across, but if we spend more time trying to understand others, then we may be more successful in our attempts of communication. Charity says, this material could be hard to use in everyday circumstances or situations. Definitely agree, without doubt. This is very difficult material to implement every day. This is not a book or a source of material that you can only read one time and say, I've read it, I'm done, and everything will be different now. That's not true. It's just not going to happen. We must take bits and pieces of this information that's a good fit for you in today's particular day and time, and try to practice. And try to practice a little bit every day, and a couple of years down the road, 10 to 20 years down the road, with continual practice, we all might be at the 90% point with this material. Charity also goes on to talk about caring about little things that upset me. Well, really good point. Many of us kind of get caught up with trying to control everything that occurs in our lives, or every single thing. And how do we determine what's the most important thing? You know, reality is we're all just human, and humans have limitations. And contrary to belief, we're not really good multitaskers. Humans are much better, and we tend to have happier lives when we concentrate on things that's important to us. And usually that means fewer items and not more. Because generally speaking, the more choices we have, the more paralyzed we are. So, getting upset's okay. And this whole paradigm of reading material and our conversations is not to infer that getting upset is a bad thing. The idea is, if you know you're getting upset, number one, is this something you care enough about to get upset? And number two, is this something you can take action on? You may be getting upset about all kinds of things that you have no control over. And we'll be talking about this in future chapters in terms of circle of concern and circle of control. You might be really concerned about 100 things, but only be able to control 10 things. And we have to ask ourselves, why are we spending all of our energy on the 90 things we can't control instead of spending our energy on the 10 things that we can? Charity made another post in a response, how little things can make a huge difference. Most definitely. It's the little things in life, and especially with our clients, that tend to make a difference. If we expect immediate change overnight from our clients or ourselves, that's probably not realistic. But if we expect incremental change, very small steps, 3 steps forward, sometimes 2 steps back, then 2 steps forward, no steps back, and so forth, then that's really how we live life and make improvements. And again, listening came up again in terms of learning how to listen is certainly the key to understanding others. And if we do not know how to listen to others in a non-judgmental, unbiased way, where the focus of the attention is on the client, the other person, the person sitting across from you, or the family member, if we listen only in terms of choosing what we listen to, or if we listen with the only intent of getting our point across, we're really not listening. And our material talks a lot this semester, the whole chapter on listening. How do we listen? Then I have some supplemental information as well, where we'll be looking at in terms of how to help other individuals learn how to listen. Plus, our first counseling class, HMS 121, it's basically a class about how to encourage appropriate listening. The next question or statement Michelle made, I think anytime, almost all of us would say, when we get upset, it's harder to process things. Because when we get upset, we have a thinking response, we also have an emotional or feeling response, and we have a physical response. And when we put all those responses together and kind of stir them up in the same pot, sometimes it's extremely hard to deal with the circumstance at hand. And this is something that our clients have trouble with day in and day out, where they can't, what I would call, slow time down, meaning take enough time or have the skills to take enough time to process the circumstance, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, and what the ultimate goal is. But what many times you find ourselves doing is just getting upset for the sole sake of we believe we should be upset, without any consideration for the actual circumstance or the consequences of the circumstance. Or maybe we're actually getting upset for not because of the actual circumstance, but because of some other reason. And it's one of those circumstances or situations where we must become and have enough self-knowledge and self-awareness that when we feel ourselves getting upset, that we know what we have to do. That we kind of take time take a time out and process the circumstance, and maybe help other individuals, or let other individuals or help us find out different ways to deal with the circumstance. There's many of us try to avoid circumstances that upset us, that bother us. But one of the major ways we can decrease stress and being upset is to deal with things as they come and not put it off. And remember what is important and what is not important. Again, if you're getting really, really upset with those 90 things that you have no control over, are you really using your energy and your time and your life in an effective way? Or are you wasting your energy and your time and the days that we have on things we can't control? Another issue is American society tells us that we can control everything. We can control ourselves, society around us, other people around us, that we're the ultimate society that has free will and we can control any outcome. And that simply is not true. Many things in life is outside of our control. And one of the signs of, many believe, of maturity, especially in working with clients, is to help them realize what you can control and what you cannot, and accept that fact. Again, another good comment from Jennifer. There's a fine line here in terms of having empathy, of trying to place yourselves in the shoes of other people, and understanding their perceptions. Then the flip side of that is this idea that you can control the feelings of other people, and we can. And we as humans also have a limited, again, attention span and span of control. Thus, if we tell ourselves we have to be super conscious of everything and everyone around us, that's not really being fair to ourselves. And honestly, long term, I've really never met anyone who believed that they could care about everything and everyone, irregardless of their own boundaries, very effectively. What I mean to say is we all have to determine what our boundaries are and how far we want to go and how much we can give of ourselves without it negatively impacting us. When I supervised counselors and case managers in the field, I would frequently ask during clinical supervision, are you working harder than the client? Because so many times, if staff was working harder than the client was working, then we have an issue. We both, meaning the client and the helper, has to be working at an equal level. If it's unequal, then the relationship is unequal and something is wrong. This issue of being okay to care, making sure that caring doesn't consume us, is a topic related to burnout and boundary issues and ethics, to be honest. And we talk a lot about this in the second counseling class, if anyone takes that, HMS 122. Next but not least, again, another comment from Jennifer that this is really hard stuff. It is. It's hard material to implement, to process, and you're taking this class hopefully because it's either part of your degree or you're interested. Imagine a client comes in and we ask them on day one, well, because of so-and-so, we're asking you to change certain behaviors. And you have to change certain behaviors within 6 weeks, or else. Imagine how hard that would be if that client has been implementing that behavior for 6 years, or for 12 years, and so forth. It's a very daunting task, and sometimes we forget that we're asking clients to make measurable change. That's really, really hard, and we don't give it enough acknowledgement to that request. Jennifer makes another comment about taking responsibility for your own actions instead of blaming others. Again, we live in a society that says we can blame others for most everything, but one of the bases of not only this approach, but the self-help approach, and basically human services, is taking responsibility for actions, even when it's not easy, and even when that responsibility is hard. I've spent most of my professional life working with folks suffering from addiction, and helping someone get clean immediately is not that hard. Helping someone stay clean long term is extremely difficult for some, because the longer we stay clean, the more responsibility we begin to take on, and the more that we see of the damage and problems we caused ourselves and our families and our communities and our friends. And what's easier? It's just easier to start using again, because taking responsibility for all those actions is so hard, and it causes so much self-reflection. Habit 7. Many of these habits are challenging. Some habits for others may be more difficult than for you. Habit 7 talks about sharpening the saw, I believe, and making sure that we don't lose momentum, and that we don't forget all the things that we've learned or we're trying to implement. It's kind of the opposite of a New Year's resolution. I really don't like New Year's resolutions. I actually hate them. And my comment to folks, especially in the clinical setting, is, well, if it was really, really important to you, you would not need a New Year's resolution if it was important to you. And one of the processes of the 7 habits is to identify what's really, really important to you, and implement and take charge and try to work on those things that's really, really important to you, and leave everything else behind. Because those things that's not important to you, those things you cannot control, may be important to other people, and let them take responsibility for that. But one of the reasons those New Year's resolutions don't work is it's important to the client or to the person for 2 or 3 weeks. If that, then it disappears. Then you lose all the momentum that you made. Habit 7 is one of those examples of not losing momentum. That doesn't mean making change overnight. It means using momentum a little bit at a time to get to where you want to be. Another point we've talked about already. Summer posted this. Many are scared. Yes, many clients honestly are not that much afraid of change, as much as they don't know how to process the change. They don't know what decision to make. Do I turn left? Do I turn right? I know going straight's not good for me, but if I go left, will it make it worse? If I go right, will it make it worse? And this stance of not knowing what to do is called ambivalence. And the longer we stay in this point of not knowing what to do, the greater likelihood of not making the appropriate decision. So there's a fine line between taking enough time to evaluate your options, then making a decision. Plus, for many clients want to make the perfect decision. And they have difficulty understanding that sometimes when we make a decision, things get worse. It doesn't solve the problem. And we have to give clients permission to experience that and to say that's okay. It's okay if the decision we made doesn't solve the problem. What's most important is that we made a decision, we learn from it, and let's go on and choose something else. Let's do something else. Let's implement another decision and see what happens. And through each one of those decision-making processes, we learn something. And we get a little bit better at it, and a little bit better at it. The worst thing that can happen is we do nothing. How to increase listening skills. Again, we have a whole chapter that's really, really good in this material that talks about listening skills. We'll be reviewing problem-solving skills in action, which is a problem-solving model that discusses how to improve listening skills. So this is a topic that will continue to come up over and over and over. And I'll be honest with you, most therapists I know, counselors and human service folks, are really bad listeners, just terrible listeners. And what our challenge is to learn how to be a good listener. Because to learn how to be a good listener, we have to put away our ego and our judgmental ways and just be with the person and listen with the person in their particular circumstance. And if you've taken Human Services 100, which is Introduction to Human Services, reread Carl Rogers' book. That book is really all about listening, and we will continue to talk about listening as we go along in this class and future classes. Jamie says, pick your battles and circumstances, situations. Could not agree more. Again, we're taught from society, from popular culture, and from social media and this egocentric side of media, that we should be able to say anything and everything we want. Our First Amendment guarantees that. Well, maybe or maybe not. But just because we believe it or think it doesn't necessarily mean we should say it, or we should pick that battle. Is it important to you, or is it not important? Or are you just saying something or getting involved in something just because you can? And with so many of our clients, that's something that's really, really hard to help them to learn. Is this a circumstance you really need to be involved in, or a circumstance you want to be involved in? Because it kind of fuels the ego and life as we know it, instead of how we want life to be. This is a great question from Charity. If you're making life change, personal change, how do you know whether it's good or bad? Well, you don't. You have to follow what you believe. Follow your moral code. What you believe about people. What you believe about yourself. Anytime we change for other people, that tends not to work, in all honesty. Even if it does, it's short-term change. And we tend to resignate back to how things were before, because the change is not happening for the right reason. The change is happening for other people. And true change only occurs long-term if the person wants it. And basing our change on, our long-term change on what other people want us to be is not very healthy. And certainly not healthy for our clients. Now, yes, there are all kinds of external short-term factors that we may have to deal with in terms of modifying client behavior and even our own behavior short-term, that may be okay. But if we're talking about long-term change that occurs for years, lifetimes, then we have to believe internally in that change. We have to have a reason to change it inside of ourselves. And if not, it just will not stick. And there's no guarantee. There's many, many things in my life that I thought at the moment in time maybe was a good decision. And it turned out to be not. You know, some of those decisions were meaningless. Many had no long-term consequences. Some of those decisions I made 10 years ago, I'm still paying the consequences for. And that's just how life is processed. That is life. And we must teach our clients and ourselves to be patient with each other, to be patient with ourselves, to not live under this false belief that we're all perfect, that we will make perfect decisions, because that's just not realistic. We must give folks, other people, and ourselves permission to fail. And once we give them and you permission to fail, some of these decisions become much easier. How do we create balance? Alice uses work and free time as an example. You can use other examples besides work and free time. But when I was in Appalachian State, I took a life and career counseling class during the summer one year, and we met for 4 weekends in a row, all day Friday and all day Saturday, and it was just a fun class. And I remember what the professor said the first day we met. You know, do you live to work or work to live? And do you have a balance? Well, for a long, long time, I truly, I lived to work. Then I discovered that I could not sustain that because I was out of balance for many, many years. And it fueled my burnout. It fueled my resentment towards clients and in the field and my fellow professionals, where I did not have a balance. And this is one of the most pressing issues for human service folks in the field, is they don't have a balance. They believe that you have to take your work home with you, you have to be thinking about it all the time, and you have to make decisions for their clients. And all this is false. This is why we lose. Turnover in human service is extremely high, very high. We tend to lose about 60% of all folks who come into the field within the first 4 years. Why? Because they're telling us that they're burning out. Well, one of the reasons folks burn out, and the primary reason folks burn out, is not the clients they serve, but it's themselves. It's the professional themselves who does not know how to balance and find a balance between work life and professional life. So what our goal is to do is to find a balance between work life, professional lives, your personal life, and so forth. Because if you're out of balance with any of those other things, how can we be good examples of someone who is trying to maintain and sustain and build a healthy lifestyle? Again, creating this work-life balance we will continue to talk about as we go through the semester and future classes, if you stay with us. Again, Sandra made a really good response to the prior post related to how do we know if our change is good or bad. And I can't say it better than Sandra did. In terms of every day, we have to align ourselves with what is right for us and what we believe. And who you are today in 2013, hopefully, will not be who you might be in 2017 or 2027. As we grow, as we mature, we change. And that's another issue for clients. Many clients who have grown up in dysfunctional families or communities, they may be, for example, 25 years old, but they're the same person they were when they were 12. And that can't be. Life goes on. Society goes on. And we must be willing and able to change with the times, which means we must be reflective enough within our own selves and our own opinions and thoughts to be able to make decisions and live life based on the relevancy of the circumstance. And again, that is hard. It certainly is. Let's see. Let me review some of my notes to make sure covered everything. Again, we talked about, we cannot change the assumptions of others, but we can those of ourselves. And if we work on ourselves, does that mean the other person has the responsibility to change with us? No, not at all. And it may make things worse in terms of the relationship. At the same time, you're doing what you know you have to do to be the best person you can be. And that is the goal of this whole process, to be the best person that you can be. Again, listening is extremely hard. Listening to others is very hard. Listening to yourself, and your self-talk is extremely difficult. So we've already talked about change, how personal change is so hard, how listening is so hard, and yet we ask clients and ourselves to make changes overnight so many times. And that's just not a fair request. One of your projects in this class is to review self-help books. I don't necessarily classify this book as a self-help book. You would find this book on the self-help bookshelves of the bookstore or the self-help section of Amazon.com, yes. I really, truly do not believe that this is a self-help book because it promises it doesn't promise anything. It only asks you to look at the material, to look at the research, and ask yourselves if any of these habits, if any of these principles are true for you. And if they are, try them out on a long-term basis and see if that helps circumstances. We'll be talking about principles in the next chapter. And I think many of your questions will become a bit more clear, I hope. Let's see. I believe I touched base on everything I needed to today. Again, I hope this helped. If you want to shoot me an email and let me know if the video helped, or if you have any questions about some of the material we just went over, or the comments of other classmates, make sure to reply to them and in the discussion boards. Or if you want to continue a personal conversation about this material, please please contact me, and I'll certainly be more than happy to we can continue this via email or video conference or so forth. Thank you so much, and take care.